Hey everybody, it's Joe from the Jodo and I'm here to give you a recap of my experience playing in the 2024 Legion World Championship Tournament at Adepticon. Going into the tournament, I knew my chances of succeeding were very low, and as is my tradition, I set myself a goal to win just one game and try to have some fun. So we'll see how I did on those fronts. To start, here's my army. I had Rebel Officer, Ahsoka, Sabine, Rebel Veterans, 2 Marky Marks, Rebel Troopers, and Clan Ren with various upgrades. I think the most notable is that I omitted the Darksaber from Sabine, and I also gave her up close and personal rather than situational awareness. I like up close on her, especially for the teamwork turn with Ahsoka. You can really get a lot of dodges out there. I knew this list was going to struggle against some of the more powerful lists dominating the meta, particularly clones, but I enjoyed the units and I find them fun to play. And it also has a fairly low mini count, which helped with my traveling logistics. Worlds was initially billed as a 3-round tournament, but I guess enough players qualified in the last chance qualifier that the player count for Worlds necessitated 4 rounds. Nobody was happy about that. At the moment, I don't have full data on my opponent's list because Game Uplink is having some technical issues, so I can't find all of this data. I will put a link to the event in the description, and you can look up my rounds and my pairings if you need the full details of what my opponents were playing. So my first round, I faced off against a fellow Rebel player. It was a rather unique list consisting of Lando, Boba Fett, Cassian, 2 veterans, 2 Mark IIs, 2 1.4 turrets, and 2 Ewok slingers. The objective was key positions, and all the terrain really ended up in my favor as the central objective was skewed slightly towards my deployment zone, and the large landing pad was a great place for Sabine and her family to hang out for most of the game in relative safety. He ended up whiffing a whipcord launcher play, leaving Boba exposed in the open, and I managed to dump my whole army into him, allowing Ahsoka to finish him off at the start of round 3. After that, the game slowly started to snowball in my favor, and I completed my goal of winning 1 game. Round 2 was against Krzysztof from Poland. He was running Anakin, Padme, and a whole bunch of clones. Our objective ended up being hostage exchange. Since I knew my Mark II turret was good for that, I also knew that this wasn't a matchup I had much chance of winning, so if I could stop his hostage carrier early, I might have a chance. I made a bold move, but one that I think was the right one, owing to the fact that if I didn't mess up his hostage play early, that was game. So I used Ahsoka's I Am No Jedi to rush the hostage carriers and try to end them immediately, or at least kill most of the unit and hope to finish them next round. Well, Ahsoka rolled 9 dice, and these were the results of that attack. Naturally, he pulled some dodges from neighboring clones or Padme and took no damage. I opted not to spend my dodges to improve my dice results because I didn't want to be left high and dry without any defense in the middle of the battlefield if he were to withdraw. Which is what happened next. The ARC troopers with the hostage withdrew, leaving Ahsoka standing there facing down the whole Grand Army of the Republic. It was basically like in Endgame when Captain America was facing off against Thanos' army, except I didn't get any portals as backup. He did manage to survive with 1 health left, and was healed up by my med droid. She actually ended up living to the last round of the game even, but at that point it was just a struggle to chase down and finish off the hostage carriers. And once they got back into the crowd of clones, even killing them didn't matter, as another one would just pick it up. I did manage to kill far more of his army than I expected to. I think I even killed Anakin. But in the end, Sabine was lined up to finish off his hostage holder in round 6, and a stray ARC trooper engaged her in melee, preventing her from taking the shot, and that was game. It was actually very fun despite the overwhelming odds, and Krzysztof was great fun to play with. Round 3 was against another clone unit, and this time Padme was married to Yoda rather than Anakin. We were playing key positions, and there's not much to say here except we traded shots at long range, with his naturally being more effective, and otherwise our forces just waited behind our cover out of range until about turn 5 when we had to push on the center objective. A turn where I might have had some hope of hunkering down on the objective was Ahsoka and Sabine's teamwork turn, but I lost the roll-off and Ahsoka whiffed some defense dice hard and died before she could have what would have otherwise been a turn loaded up with dodges. And for the last round, I don't think I actually took any pictures from my last round, because at that point I was so exhausted and just ready to be done with the tournament. 4 rounds is a lot, and I knew the game was pretty much irrelevant as far as standings go, but I wanted to give it a shot anyways. It was against Krennic, double Dark Troopers, and 7th Sister, padded out with some Shores and a Mortar. So I just said screw it and tried to rush the Dark Troopers, which ended up getting Ahsoka killed as she was force pulled out into the open without any dodges. Basically, I made the mistake that I was cautious to avoid in round 2. It was downhill from there. I didn't accomplish much other than getting a Dark Trooper unit down to 1 health left. And that was that. I went 1-3, which means I met my goal of winning 1 game. Did I meet my goal of having fun? Sort of. Rounds 1 and 2 were fun. Round 3, my opponent was cool and a nice guy, but the game itself was pretty miserable since it was just sitting there waiting, not doing much of anything. And the last round wasn't much fun, but I attribute that mostly to how absolutely exhausted and fried I was at that point, and knowing that I was going to get chewed up by Dark Troopers. Not that I expect to earn an invite to next year's Worlds, but if I do, I'm thinking I might just pass it on to someone else because I left this year's tournament wishing I had just been playing in a chill side event, or spectating, or maybe actually interviewing players and creating more content around the tournament. I'm not cut out for the competition and 4-round days.
I'm getting too old for this sort of thing.
Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks to all of my opponents. And if you don't want to miss future Legion content on the Jodocast, be sure to subscribe and all that stuff.